they will come back to take, back what would communities are doing a lot.
Is this from is this from the farmers? Are you suggesting that perhaps the farmers too are also taking cattle, rustling cattle from the itinerant herders?
Well, communities are doing. Members of communities do this. Otherwise, if there is no cattle rustling, people wouldn't be talking about it. And this is why ongoing efforts seem to be like what you have in Benue, just coming out of Agatu last week. You had the Nasarawa and the Benue State coming together, to carve out a terrain for cattle rearing.
Which is, you can see how contentious that is. I mean, only recently, we also saw on the news last night that the community members were resisting that move by the state government because they felt that the wounds were just too fresh for them to forget in a hurry.
Well, it is not easy to suppress all of that, but certainly that is the only way to go. I mean, the way of peace, the resolution of this conflict. And even Anambra, quite a number of states have, and Enugu, we have seen solutions that are very bright. That wherever communities steal cattle and they are able to trace, they are made to pay the cattle herders for what they have stolen. And if the cattle rearers drive their cattle into a farmland and they destroy their crops, they are surcharged. So there's a balance in the way it is done.
But in terms of the lives that have been lost, I mean, it's not very easy now.
Well, the lives have been lost, and I have always, I've said earlier when we began this conversation, it is always that when there is a conflict like this, lives are lost on both sides. And I think that media reporting ought to be such that it reflects losses on all sides. Otherwise, we're not helping, crisis situations.
From what you can, from what you know, I want to believe that you have more information than this. The information more has been on the side of Southern Kaduna. For instance, we heard the Catholic Church, they're releasing a statement that over 808 lives had been lost in this crisis as of the time they wrote their statement, which was under contention. I mean, I think it was the police commissioner, the IG of police, who disputed those figures. But then they never released any figure of their own. We never got any figure from state authorities. Even recently, the governor of the state came out to say that since the crisis began in Southern Kaduna, since the beginning of crisis in Southern Kaduna, over 20,000 lives have been lost to different crises at different points in the history of Southern Kaduna. It's a huge amount of people who have lost their lives to this conflict that could have been resolved before now. Is this something that the federal government is giving serious thoughts to?
It is tragic and unfortunate that this has happened. But first of all, I must warn that people don't help situations like this when the situations become inflamed, when we bandy about figures which people can hardly justify. It would have been nice if the gentleman who had said 808 and it was carried forward to the National Assembly, it was accompanied by a published list. It's not that one is being insensitive to the losses, but when there is a fight between two groups, each of whom are wielding arms, there are losses on both sides. It cannot be that it is only one side that is always losing.
Yeah, but I mean, if they are the ones who are, because I would think that even for security reports, it is easier to compile the list of those who are the the sedentary farmers. If they are farmers by occupation and they're in one position and they're always showing you the havoc and the number of people who have died in their communities, it would be easier to collate their figures rather than collate the figures of those who lost lives who have been itinerant. I recall only recently, for instance, in Adamawa, where 3 policemen were killed in this violence. We understand that they had word that, that these herdsmen were going to come in and that they had been trying to, sue for peace. The state government was trying to broker peace between the two communities. Still, an attack couldn't be prevented, and the policemen who were sent to guard the place were killed, in addition to some of the villagers in that place who were killed. Now, the police came out with a statement to say that some of their some of the people the marauders who came into the village were killed as well, but that they were able to escape with the bodies. I mean, first of all, a lot of people found that incredible, but then, you know, how easy will it be, for instance, if they said 2 or 3 people were killed, how easy will it be for those people to show their own side of the story? It's what you see on the ground you're going to report. Isn't that the case?
Well, I cannot account for all of the bodies, but for instance, I think that the escalation of the crisis in southern Kaduna reached perhaps the highest point around Christmas. I'm talking about the recent Christmas.
Yes.
And this is from where all these numbers are coming from. And you recall that the president instructed the Inspector General of Police to go to the place. And the Inspector General of Police asked his men on the ground to give him numbers of those they could say were killed.
And how many did they come up with?
They gave him 16 names. So we have to be careful about numbers. And if you ask me, who do I believe? I would rather believe the Inspector General of Police than believe someone whose numbers are not structured, are not in a way, accounted for in full, in a sense that we can see names and home addresses.
Do you think that the government should actually take, from what we've heard so far, I mean, even 16 is...
Absolutely. I'm not... Well, nobody is pleased. Nobody is pleased with the losses.
No one is. But what I'm saying is, if we're to take, for instance, when we started hearing about this crisis, I think sometime, was it in October or I think August, beg your pardon, sometime in August when we heard the first attacks, I think around Godo, and, collate from that time down to December. Are you saying that, the figures are being exaggerated? If the police IG only came back with 16 names, is somebody telling the truth somewhere?
Well, maybe the thing then is we ask the police to update their own numbers, go back to the period you just mentioned, and then give us their own numbers, and let's see what it looks like. The 808 is alarming. I hope that it is not up to that. I am persuaded in my mind that the numbers could be much lower.
Oh, much higher?
I doubt that.
Why do you doubt it?
Because we need to have, as I said, explanation as to where are they coming from, all of them. And when we have a situation like this, who buries the corpses? It is usually the local authorities that do this. And when they give numbers, we have no other person to believe than those ones. We're just dealing with the Borno, for instance. People are this conflicting numbers coming from the Air Force mistake and raid.
Yes, the security situation is such that all over the country is such that people are getting worried. I mean, down south, for instance, now we've seen a situation whereby children have been kidnapped from a certain school, and this is how many days? It's over a week now, and the children are yet to be found, even though the police say they've arrested the lead, the gang leader of the group. But this doesn't seem to have resulted in the finding of those children. In fact, in many instances now, kidnap for ransom is almost the order of the day, and it doesn't look like there is a lot that can, a lot doesn't look like the police can actually handle the situation on the ground. For some people, they believe that these are the ingredients of a state that is not exactly on top of things and has things in its grasp.
No, on the contrary, to be fair to our law enforcement, and I'm sorry, all of these things are happening. Nobody is happy with kidnappings and all of that. And you know that the strategy the police has used for quite some time is that when family members say stay away, they stay away, especially in the period of negotiation, because concern for the safety of hostages is always given, a priority. But check the records. In more than 90% of the cases of kidnapping,